Dr. Sinche?
I'm doing okay. It's 2020.
It is. This is a fact. It's still 2020.
It's still 2020. So.
It's It's for anyone listening in the future, 2020 was a rough year, and for Dr. Sinche's and my experience right now, it's still 2020, which means it's still rough right now.
Still rough, and in some ways rougher than even the beginning of this, because we've learned so much and changed so little. In some ways rougher because there's a lot of fatigue, I think. And in some ways rougher because it feels like the end is in sight, but not. Right, we're not there yet.
No, we're not. It's especially weird, like being remote for essentially mostly remote for the entire semester of school. It's not fun. I have to say it's not fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if you concur, but
it's not fun. It's not fun for teaching. Absolutely. There are lots of ways in which it is not fun, but professionally it's very, very not fun right now. And I feel like that's true for students. Nobody's really enjoying this. We're all aware of the fact that we need to get through it. We need to do the best we can, but there's so little to enjoy in school right now, and that's too bad, because I genuinely enjoy almost all of my time at school. I don't like grading papers, but I really like being with students. I love teaching my subject, and I'm not feeling that right now, which is too bad.
No, it's yeah, it's like I myself, because most things are either hybrid or remote, I'm not on campus most of the time. I'm only I was able to finagle my schedule so that I only have to be on campus one day a week. And as much as I'm glad, I don't have to be driving to the university 4 or 5 days a week to and from, it's still in the before times, I would be there 4 or 5 days a week, and I'd have downtime in between classes where I would I don't know, hang out with some friends or sit around just in a lounge at least to be near other people. And now it's just, I go there one day a week, and I mean, there is still downtime in between classes, but it's still there's no incentive really for me to go out of my way to say be around other people.
Right. And well, it's hard to even find other people to be around. Even if you had those incentives, there just aren't a lot of folks on campus. I haven't seen Professor Sohaki, for example, all year. I haven't seen Professor Striff. I haven't seen Professor Frank. So people who I would normally see several times a week and chit chat with, I don't see them at all. And then other folks I see I think I've seen Professor Walling twice. There's Professor Rivera maybe twice. It's such a different environment in my workspace that and I found that I really value those interactions, with my colleagues, whether they be at meetings or in informal conversations. It's such a nice place to work around other smart, talented people who do the same things. And that pleasure has been taken away from all of us. And the same is true, of course, for students, that's one of the joys of being in college, is being around other smart people with whom you have something in common. And, Now that doesn't happen organically. It only happens in sort of manufactured settings.
Yeah. And if I recall correctly, students aren't even allowed to meet with their professors physically, in their offices.
Well, right? It depends on the office. We measured my office. There are 6 feet between. If I push my chair up against the wall and a student is up against the bookcase, there are 6 feet there, so if we're masked, it's okay. But I can understand why students don't feel comfortable with that. Like, just because it's okay doesn't mean everybody's comfortable. So there are multiple levels to kind of navigating the pandemic in any social situation, and sort of the letter of the law is but one of them.
Yeah, I miss the kind of like in my downtime, I'd probably hang out in the English department and pass by offices, say hello to you or other professors. And now, like, I'm not. First of all, I don't have any classes in Auerbach Hall, and also because most of the time you guys are not there. It's it's something I miss that used to be like the better part of my days, because I would be discussing like just stuff like assignments or whatever with you guys, or even like having you on podcasts and stuff.
Yeah, the better parts of most people's days outside of their home are gone. Because my one hope, I was just talking to a student about this in office hours. My one hope is that we will value those better parts much more in the future, and it is clear to me, at least, that the better parts are other people. Like, those are the better parts of my life, are other human beings, and my family is, of course, a big part of that. But that's the one group of people I still see regularly. But that I've gotten a sense for the richness of my community by not having it anymore.
Yeah, and it also, complicated like the idea of me trying to keep the podcast going, because back when I was trucking along, and then I recorded my last episode of that first batch on the day the WHO declared a global pandemic, and then I was like, okay, after that episode got recorded, it was like I have enough to like until the end of the spring semester, and then I couldn't meet with people to do this, so I was like, I guess that's season 1. We'll call that season 1 of the podcast. And then like I've felt so reluctant to. There are other podcasters I listen to who are like, yeah, can't physically meet with people, but still gotta do it. So they're like, they jump right onto the remote kind of recordings. But like, I'm reluctant because I enjoy the energy of a live conversation, and also to be in control of the recording, use my own equipment and such. Because moving into doing these remote sessions, it's like I don't know if you noticed, for the episodes I have been putting out for the season 2, most of them have been like musician friends of mine, or at least just people who I know have like access to decent microphones and recording equipment, because I really did not want to sacrifice like sound quality.
Right. Well, and I'm helping you sacrifice that now. I know because of my equipment. Although, who knows? But it may turn out that is something you're after you do it a few times, maybe you'll find out that after all was something you were willing to sacrifice, or you can live with the sacrifice because it might permit something else. Just, in the same way that all the things that we've learned since this started, we will not abandon all of them. Some of them will stay with us, and some of them will make our lives better once life has returned to normal. Maybe this will give you a feeling like, oh, you know what, I can really expand my reach as a podcaster because I've learned how to use other people's inferior technology and equipment and still make it sound okay.
Oh no, well, this actually me talking to you right now is me seeing if it can work, because this is the first session that I have remote session I've done where like the other person doesn't have like a microphone that maybe looks like this one I'm using, So this this might not, but maybe to other people this might not seem like such a leap, but this is me taking it's me taking the leap to see if it will work.
Right. No, and I can see that in your face, Benson. Other people can't see your face. I can. I can see you struggling with the leap right now.
Yeah.
And people who are listening, you should have seen Benson before we started. Just the dismay on his face when he was like, "So that's your microphone. It's just those earbuds, those Apple earbuds. That's your microphone." And but we worked through it, and hopefully it's going to sound okay.
And hopefully, I don't know, I can do something in post.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's I actually just yesterday I podcasted Kira, friend of the show, Kira Herget, we did it in person, but distanced. I wiped down the table, disinfected my microphones, and then we kept our masks on while recording. So because I don't know, this past week is the last week we're gonna of in-person classes until the next semester starts, which is February. And I felt like I at least wanted to see if it could work, recording in person, but with precautions like masks. And to be completely honest, I tried out recording on my own with a mask on just at home. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't sound bad. You just have to maybe project a bit more. And hey, built-in pop filter or something. So no plosives in here. And I'm wondering if, at least in the case of myself and Kira, we were like, you know what? We were comfortable enough to say, let's try it, even though we are trying to be safe, but there's still the inherent risk of just meeting in person. So I wanted to see if it could work, and if I'm able to not compromise in either direction of being in person and controlling the recording and also keeping people safe.
Right. Well, and I imagine that wearing masks, that alters a conversation as well, right? I mean, some of the cues that we're used to looking for, we don't notice as much when people are wearing masks. I mean, even like a moment of sort of protracted, like if my mouth is closed for a long time, I'm done talking. Well, you can't see that with a mask. And so, that can change the dynamics of the conversation as well, I imagine.
Yeah, I think part of having conversations with people, especially the way I used to do it, is seeing your face and knowing when you're going to finish a thought and then jumping in with whatever the hell I'm going to say. And I mean, in the case of myself and Kira, we're like friends. We just bullshit on the podcast, there wasn't a lot of, say, stepping over each other because we couldn't see each other's face to know if we were done talking. So in that context, it wasn't too bad. But now I'm wondering if in the given the long shot, if someone is comfortable to do it to record in person with me while wearing a mask, and they're not, say, a peer of mine, I don't know. With that, I wonder if the conversation would be somewhat compromised, if that could happen.
Right. Well, and that's why my test case is so important. So you can see if you can tolerate. You could still look at somebody at least via video conference and tolerate the sound quality. Or I guess maybe you could just start sending condenser microphones to all the people you know.
Oh no, yeah, but then there's like, there's such, it's, it's there's a whole bunch of complications that would like, like the thought has crossed my mind of like, I have another machine here that that is sitting on top of the one I'm using. So it's like, maybe I could just like sit down with someone, show them how to use it, leave, go home, and then we do it. It's like, I don't know. It's like at that point we might as well just do it in person or something. Because,
well, we have a room in the English department, which I took over because I wanted to have a printing press and use that to teach students. But now no one can use it because we can't have multiple people in the same room working on a printing press. So maybe that can be your temporary podcast studio. You can set people up, get them all ready, and then you can leave and go home, and your subject can sit in that room and record the podcast. We'll have some dedicated space in the department.
Yeah, or I suppose I could just go into another room.
I suppose that's you don't have to go. You don't have to drive all the way home. Yeah, good point. Fair enough.
All right, so we're all set up. Just wait here for an hour so I can go home.
Okay, no, I guess your plan works a little better, Benson. That's a good point.
I don't know. It's like, because I understand not everyone has equipment, and even people who do have equipment might not be comfortable using it. So it's like, I don't know, I saw this thing on the other day of someone who, like, they do a podcast for like their company, and apparently they're willing to like ship out all this equipment to everyone of their guests, because they're the hill they're choosing to die on is to not sacrifice the sound quality. And so, at least in their case, they totally have the money and resources to do that, but I don't think I do.
Now, actually, have you looked into, because you're a double major, have you looked into using the resources in the School of Communications or the Department of Cinema? Like, is there any way that you could use those?
How do you mean?
I don't know. I'm sure they have microphones, sound studios, things like that might be useful to you.
Well, I mean, I have the equipment to do it. Like, I have multiple microphones and audio interfaces, machines for people to use to plug the microphones into, and then into a computer. But having to, like, if I end up having to mail a thing to someone so that they can record, so they can record their end for the podcast, it's like that, that's a whole mess of logistics, and then there's still not even the, like, maybe like having a separate Zoom call meeting to walk them through like setting up the equipment, and then we do the podcast.
That's a lot.
Yeah. For those listening, I'm just shrugging my shoulders like Dr. Sinche, because like I'm not sure if there's a workaround that makes sense for all this.
Well, and maybe, like I said, maybe it ends up being the case that you don't need a workaround. That's what you find out. Or I guess if you find out that you do, then it's sort of the intensity of the need determines the complexity of the workaround. Right?
I think probably the simplest workaround is just to stop doing it.
Right, but isn't this something that gives you a great deal of pleasure? Doing the podcast?
It used to, and now it's getting weird because of all the things. But like, I'm not even sure if there's like a dichotomy of reason for me doing this. Like, it used to be because I just wanted to do it, and also it seemed fun. And I guess for the most part, it has been fun. But now it's but it was also a part of like me wanting something that's always ongoing, a project that I'm always working on, which like making films can take a long time, so it's not really I feel like there's no such thing as regularly putting out films, at least in a time frame small enough that it seems regular. And it's and so it was like I wanted to be my thing, a thing of mine that was um always concurrent with like everything else I'm doing that may not be released to the public or seem creative. And so it's I want now it's because of all this, the complications of being remote and may for the foreseeable future probably being remote. It's making this a bit less fun, to be honest.
Well, I mean, certainly if part of the joy was getting together with people that you like or find interesting, then that piece has been removed, right? I mean,
Yep.
well, this is 2020, right? This is where we started. We're still doing all the things that we used to do. We're just not enjoying them as much because the ways that we now have to do them have sort of alerted us to what it was we enjoyed after all, right? And I just keep going back to other people, right? Like it's a sort of like an authentic connection to other human beings in all sorts of situations. These are the things that we really valued. We might have called it teaching, in my case. I mean, and I was actually teaching, I think, right? But like that was the venue in which it occurred, or for you, podcasting, or any other number of things. But in every case, that was the thing, right? It was like it was being with other people and just sort of experiencing life together in a moment. And all the forms in which that happened have just been curtailed. So, and the frustration with masks and lockdowns, which is not something that's part of my like personal experience, but that's where it comes from. Like I think people are feeling that lack, and they're chafing against it, and or chafing at it, or and they don't know, like, how are they going to get this back? Like something has been lost. How are they going to get it back? When's it going to come back? And it's hard to be patient. So, I'm not surprised to hear you say that, because that's what I hear everybody say about almost everything. It's like, well, it's just kind of less fun now than before, whatever it might be.
Yeah, it's like even on some level I even liked, say, going to the university physically, like I said before, because like I would just like hang out with people or something, but it also, I mean, it felt like I was doing something because I was going to university and like sitting in class and then like getting out of class, waiting for the other class, maybe doing some other work, and like the act of being there, reinforced the idea that I was actively learning.
Right. I mean, well, and I've so many students have said this. I'm sure your friends are saying it. My colleagues are saying it. When we just sit here, we don't feel like we're doing anything. And so there's two questions there, right? Like, one, were we really doing anything before, or do we just feel like we were, which I suppose is a possibility. Or two is like, well, what does it mean to do a thing? And I really do believe like it is full engagement, right? Like doing learning isn't just sort of having sound come into your ears, or saying something in class, or putting a note in the chat, or turning on your camera and looking at somebody. It's all those things all the time, right? Like when you think about all the stuff that we would do in class before, and I'm thinking about the students as well as the faculty. We were moving our bodies. We were using our voices. We were actually writing things down. I mean, in my classes every day, you know this, right? Like we'll do a quiz and I'll move around the classroom and I'll pick up the quiz and then we'll do some group work and students will move their desks and we're all looking at each other all the time. Now, sedentary, stationary, no visual cues, oftentimes no writing. It's just become kind of very sterile and limited. And so I think it's helping us see like learning and teaching. Those are bodily things. Those are right. You write, you read, you listen, you move, and we've reduced it.
Yeah, it's and these I really identify with the word sedentary now because like I'm not obligated to wake up early every morning to drive to university, which for the most part, the waking up stupid early was to like get good parking, but now it's like I'm sleeping in every day and just waiting for class to start, but like because I'm at home, I don't feel the impetus, the urgency to like complete my classwork, and like it's like to the point where I'd be writing a response for you real late at night, right before it's due, and then just thinking to myself, I'm so sorry, Dr. Sinche, that this is not going to be great writing for you to read.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, Benson, everybody must be doing the same thing because in comparative terms, you're still doing fine. I think the quality has gone down for most folks, and I don't mean just in my classes. I hadn't thought this until we had a conversation, which is why it's useful to have conversations with people, right? But learning and teaching are sort of full body experiences. And even though the physical might not be the most important, it is a part of that complete engagement. And when you strip all those things away, the quality of the inputs and the outputs goes down. I think it does. And I mean, I see it in my own children and their schooling. I see it in just talking to colleagues, and they're all feeling that lack. I see it. I've observed classes, online classes. And you feel it there. And the invisible student can be even more invisible, right? Right? These students abound, right? The people that are in the class, but they almost never say anything. They show up, let's say 75% of the time. They're prepared 40% of the time. And, but now all those percentages have gone down, right? That the invisible student comes to every class, never says a word, don't even know if they're there, doesn't contribute anything.
They're truly invisible because they probably have their camera off.
They always have their cameras off. And you are the only student who has his or her camera on consistently this whole semester across I only teach 2 classes, but you're the only student that consistently has his camera on. And it's a way of being responsible to yourself and to your learning, right? Like, because you kind of can't just walk away, but everybody else can and does, right? Like it's very clear that a significant percentage of the class is not there at any given, maybe not any given time, but at over the course of the hour and 15 minutes, most people are stepping away for a bit, right? If not physically, then definitely mentally.
Yeah.
So it's such an amazing thing. I said this in class yesterday. I know you were there, right? All you need to learn is a library card, right? You can learn everything you need to learn with a library card. And yet we need a structure to hold us accountable in almost all cases. There are some people who are extraordinarily gifted or talented or motivated and are autodidacts, but we need a structure to keep us motivated and on task. And you start removing pieces of that structure, it just doesn't work as well.
Yeah, I guess now the modern equivalent is all you need to learn is an internet connection.
True.
And it's, I don't know, like, I've, like, in a way, I've been, actually, for, you could say I've been more focusing on, like, other, like, learning about other things rather than my schoolwork, because I don't know, like, when the pandemic hit, and I'm like, this is probably going to last a while. I should probably get some stuff, like a micro, like, well, I had microphones, but like maybe devices for like sound equipment, and also learn how to do something like this, like have a decent camera and microphones running, so like whoever's on the other end of like a remote class or like a meeting or doing a podcast like this can like their experience is better for it, because I'm like resourceful and prepared and know how to run all these things, you know.
Right. Well, and having the ultimate remote setup is still just a remote setup, right?
Yep.
You undoubtedly have the best remote setup, and you know that piano's been next to you all semester, and
yep.
I've heard nothing. I've heard nothing.
I kept like back when everyone got sent home last spring, I had the idea of like being in the waiting room of a Zoom call for class or like Blackboard Collaborate, and like playing, like grabbing my guitar, plugging it in and playing for everyone waiting. So
yeah. I mean, I think it's a great, I don't know why, playing us in would be a really neat thing to add to a class. And now this is of course not your responsibility, but it would be a neat thing for people to look forward to before, like to show up early to hear Benson play, or to hear some kind of music. In fact, I need to incorporate that next semester to give people a reason to show up a little bit early.
Yeah, I did that once for one of our classes, but I clicked on the wrong day for the Blackboard Collaborate session. And the thing is, there were other people there because they had also clicked the same wrong link. So I was playing guitar for like 20 minutes and having people like respond to me before we all realized we were in the wrong session. And then I show up virtually to class like 10 minutes late. And then that was also a day when my internet went out for like half an hour. And I was like frantically trying to reconnect or like reset my router. And I was like, this is terrible, because now I think we were reading Thoreau, and like I felt, for one, I missed out on class because I clicked the wrong link, and then I missed out on even more class because my internet went out.
And so now you're gun shy. Like, well, I can't do that again. It messed everything. Yeah.
Well, I mean, more because I haven't been doing it, because I have been going to class physically for the past couple of weeks. But now that the rest of the fall semester now is going to be completely remote, maybe I'll start doing it. I'll get into doing it.
I know, and these the completely remote semester. I'm just I can't even imagine what it's going to look like in other classes. Most of the folks I know have just said we're done. Like we're going to use we're going to use the last week to write, work on final projects, study for exams, review, this sort of thing. But everybody seems to know that instruction is now at an end. And
now that I think about it, like the way you set up the class, we're not meeting for the next couple of weeks. We're just like, you're doing individual meetings for the, like, talk about final papers, which means I can't do it for our class. I can't
That's not true.
be doing the Blackboard Lounge with Benson Tai.
No, Tuesday. And in fact, that's what a great Thanksgiving gift, because the whole class is supposed to be there remotely on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I'll tell everyone, if you get there early, there might be a special treat. And people will think maybe that it'll be something like really, really rewarding for them personally, maybe like extra credit. But then it'll be Benson playing a guitar. That, I will enjoy that even if they don't.
Yeah.
Now, how do you play piano as well, Benson? Or do you have that there just for like tuning and note matching or stuff like that?
I would say I touch piano.
Okay.
I actually, technically speaking, piano is my very first instrument, but it was when I was 16. So, like, I studied piano, quote unquote, studied piano for like a year, but it was like I didn't know if I wanted to be a musician yet, or at least I wasn't too into it yet. And so it wasn't until I was 17 I picked up guitar that like all bets were off. So, and like I actually actively practiced like playing piano and guitar and trying to like translate the knowledge back and forth between instruments. And I would say I can play pop rock piano. I wouldn't say I'm like in fact, sometimes I don't like saying I play piano because that implies like I play piano.
I understand what you're saying.
Like I know how to like use the pedal and actually know I could have built up enough dexterity to be impressive. But like I prefer saying I play keyboard. And to further specify, I would probably say like I play pop rock keyboard.
Yeah, my younger son plays cello, and he's a good seventh grade cello player. Not a prodigy, but he's a solid player. And when he was playing, we got him like a book of classic rock songs. He's like, "These are all so easy." I'm like, yeah. It's like 10 notes over and over, the song sounds cool. Like when you, like when you listen to Layla, it sounds pretty cool. But when you like play the notes of Layla on a cello, it's not so interesting. So he like blew through that book in like 2 weeks. It's like, all right, well, now what? I understand the distinction.
Yeah. So like, in fact, I haven't actually hooked up my keyboard to like be like if I were to do the Blackboard Lounge. I haven't actually hooked it up yet because there's something about like it sounds real noisy based on how that thing's put together and then leading a cable into a thing. So I don't know if I will do it, but like it's easier and less hissy to like plug my guitar in to do it.
All right. Well, hey, look, the Blackboard Lounge it could be a Blackboard coffee house. It's fine. That'll be great. Now, do you have an electric acoustic? Do you have an acoustic you can plug in?
Yeah. All of my guitars have electronics on them so that they can be plugged into a thing.
And is that a mandolin, a ukulele? What's the smaller one up there?
Okay, so for those listening, I have a thing on my wall where I hang my guitars, and
it's a great visual podcast.
Rather, my string instruments. Yeah. The small little thing in that's closest to that's northernmost is the ukulele.
Okay,
and then there's a classical guitar, my steel string acoustic. One of these actually just got in the past week, one of these electric guitars, which, I could show you.
Excellent. This is high quality podcasting, folks. When Benson brings, is this an Epiphone?
This is the best podcast ever because I am showing stuff to Dr. Sinche, which he can see, but no one else can see because this is an audio format.
Yeah.
So I just got this in the past week. It's an Epiphone Dot.
Yeah, the beautiful sunburst. That's nice.
Yeah, I have a I've noticed that I prefer Sunburst
Yeah, I see another one up
paint jobs.
Yeah. So, and is that a Tele? You have a Telecaster and a Stratocaster up there, right?
That is a Telecaster electric guitar, and then the thing next to it is actually a Fender Precision bass guitar.
Oh, bass. So, so the Fender pickups are really different from the Epiphone pickups. I think don't they say you get a much warmer sound out of an Epiphone pickup than out of the like a Tele?
Yeah, like so for people who are not aware, like say the Fender Telecaster and guitars similar to it have single coil pickups, and the ones that you would see like on a Gibson or an Epiphone guitar, like this Epiphone Dot, which is actually modeled. So Epiphone is owned by Gibson, and they produce the cheaper versions of Gibson guitars. And the Epiphone Dot is modeled after the Gibson ES335, and they have humbucking pickups,
right?
Which, so with single coil pickups, they're basically just magnets on the body of a guitar, and they pick up the vibrations of the string and transduce them into electrical signals to be plugged into an amp or etc. And with single coil pickups, they have a particular sound, like they're very bright. They have a really cutting tone with a lot of top end. But part of why people might not like single coil pickups is this 60 hertz kind of hum that comes when I notice it when I have my Telecaster plugged in and I'm reaching over the amp to fiddle with settings, and I hear the because it's getting close to the amp. And somewhere along the way, someone invented humbucker pickups, which is basically two single coils next to each other going in opposite directions, so that with polarities in different directions, so that they buck the hum, they cancel out that interference, so that you don't get that noisy hum. And also it changes the tonal characteristics quite a bit, so that it's more round and a bit warm and throaty as compared to just a single coil pickup.
And now there's a Telecaster. I've got a Stratocaster, and it has two single coils and then a double humbucker at the bottom. And then there's you can adjust on the body of the guitar whether you want one pickup, two pickups, all three, or some combination thereof. Is it the same thing on your Telecaster, or is it all single coil?
So the Telecaster just has one single coil pickup near the neck and another near the bridge. And the pickup selector goes three ways. So it's either just a bridge,
right,
just a neck,
right,
or in the middle, so you can have both of them going at the same time.
Nice. So what did you purchase the Epiphone because you're hoping to do something different in terms of sound or in terms of different music, or you just wanted to get something to sort of round out your collection?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I knew that I wanted the Tele, and the reason I got it as my very first electric guitar was because I knew about its versatility. Mm-hmm. And also it is the world's first commercially available solid body electric guitar. So, and it's stuck around, there's a reason for it. And, so I got that, but then I was using it, but then I knew solid body single coil pickups for the Telecaster, everything it does, it's great. It's great at whatever it does. But I also knew that to round out the collection, but also to round out the sonic arsenal, you could say, that I'm building, I would but it would be useful to have a guitar that is, so the Epiphone Dot, which is modeled after the Gibson ES335, is a semi-hollow body. So there is a solid block of wood going down the middle. And then the sides here are hollow, so that you can, like, if you played it acoustically, there is some it sounds louder, and it's more resonant than just a solid body electric guitar, because it would just be um, vibrating through one solid piece of wood. But because it's semi hollow, you can, like, it has that kind of characteristic. And also the other kinds of the I think of single coils and humbucker pickups to be on a spectrum, either side of a spectrum. And I wanted to, like, I originally thought to myself that I would only ever have one electric guitar, and it'd be a Telly, because yeah. But now I think I'm done. I'm done buying electric guitars, because I have the Telly and now I have the Dot, and that will take care of everything I need.
Excellent. Well, yeah, I was, when I was playing music more, and that was a long time ago now, I was really interested in all the different kinds of electric guitars and the different sounds. And, like, there are people who are into Rickenbackers, and that's the Beatles played, and that's kind of like a niche thing. And I just find it to be such an interesting world, but also a world that requires a degree of time that I, as a parent and professional, did not have any longer. There was a moment where it's like, well, I just had to kind of get off that train. But I love hearing about it, and I loved learning about it as well when I was really interested in it.
Given how long we've known each other and how much we've talked to each other, I was not aware that you played music.
Badly. Yeah. When I was 22,
that makes two of us.
When I was 20, well, no, I'm sure much worse than you, Benson. When I was 23, actually, 23, I had just moved to North Carolina and got my second full-time teaching job. And I love folk music. Less now, but at the time, like, I was really into, I still love Bob Dylan, but Bob Dylan, and I grew up with Gordon Lightfoot, listening to him all the time because my parents liked Gordon Lightfoot. I loved Gordon Lightfoot, seen him in concert many times. And so I was like, I want to learn to play this stuff. And so I went to Hillsborough Sight and Sound in Hillsborough, North Carolina. And I was like, I just want an introductory acoustic guitar. And they sold me a used Takamine for like $125. And I just taught myself. So I bought a Hal Leonard book with a CD and, like, just sat down and learned one string, just learned scales. And then eventually, after a year or two, got to the point where I could play a lot of those songs strumming. I could strum the chords for those songs.
Yeah.
And then right at that point, I started graduate school, and things just slowed down. I was just really so busy. And a couple years later, I had my first child, or my wife had our first child, and then it really just stopped because I could not devote time to it. So I sort of reached the level of a guy who could play rhythm guitar in church. And that's where I stopped, and I'm still there. Like, during the quarantine, I picked up the acoustic a lot, and my son plays the cello, my other son plays the violin, and we would try, and he sings, and so we tried to do songs together. Usually,
start a family band.
But every now and then it worked out. Especially my son, who could play the fiddle. Like, he's really gifted musically and sort of understands how music works and could help us play together. And that was actually a ton of fun. But my ability is, like, I don't do bar chords. I can only do really open chords, and really only, like, 15 or 20 of them with any kind of facility. So,
right.
And thinking back now, I realize just getting there was hard. Now, I started as an adult, but being able to, like, switch just to do 4 or 5 chord songs and switch so that they sound good, like, that took a ton of work. And then I see people who could really play the guitar, and I think that is a young man's game, Like, you really have to. I haven't forgotten how to do it, right? But I think to learn to get to a certain level, you've got to be able to put in 10, 15 hours a week for a few years to really get good at that instrument.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that time.
Well, I did, because I was just like a high school student. and like sometimes skip class to do it. Just to practice guitar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in all seriousness, at the time I was learning, I also had a job that I had to pay my rent. And so it was not a choice for me to stay home and fiddle around on the guitar. And I don't mean to denigrate, like, a lot of good things have happened because people stayed home and fiddled around the guitar, you know?
Yeah.
Like, those people have added immensely to our world. I just didn't, I wasn't there. But my nephew is an excellent guitar player who had that time. And, yeah, I'm totally jealous, you know, the fact that he's 18. The coolest thing is you're going to have it for life. You know, like, as somebody who's now in his mid 40s and really I haven't improved, but I haven't lost a ton as a guitar player. I think, you know, once you learn that stuff, it's with you. You know, you're going to have that for a long time, which is pretty neat.
Do you think your affair with the guitar, like, influenced maybe your, like, your children, were they drawn to music, or was it you like trying to sneak them into music? Or,
I mean, my wife and I we both thought, and my wife's parents especially, they supported us, giving them music lessons financially, which at a certain point in our lives was really, like, there just wasn't much money. And so, that was really helpful. So I would say just the whole family thought that being into music would be a good thing for our kids. And now my oldest son wants to be a musical theater major. Like, he wants to continue with that. So I would say, you know, we have seen it add immeasurably to their lives. And, but it wasn't my guitar. I remember distinctly, like, my son was born and I thought, oh, this is great. Like, I'll play him. I would always sing to him, you know, at bedtime, I'd sing the Bob Dylan song. No, that was Henry. So Charles, I would sing Gordon Lightfoot's "Early Morning Rain" all the time, and which I can also play on the guitar. And I remember distinctly, like, oh, you know, this is going to be so sweet. I'm going to, like, sing folk songs for my child, and he hated it. Like, you know, he had no interest in listening to Dad. And I'm not a great singer either, but whatever. I mean, you know, I can get through a song like that. And he had zero interest in hearing his dad play that song. So, you know, and then Henry, my younger son, same thing, no interest at all. So I cannot take any credit for any of it, Benson, I'm afraid.
That's Dad's music. I hate it.
I mean, so the older one is he likes anything. You know, he loves Broadway music, but he will listen to anything in the world and find a way to enjoy it. So eventually he has come around a bit to that music, but I certainly didn't. I wasn't the thing that made the difference. No.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm jealous of people who say have early exposure to music and then, like, end up taking it up. But like my parents don't really value music in any real measurable way. So I like I said before, like, I didn't pick up instruments until 16, 17. And, you know, I think I remember a thing where like, I asked my parents, like, why didn't you ever, like, think about putting me in, like, music lessons or something like that? Like, I really would have loved to pick up piano at an early age so I could, like, be able to actually play it. But I think, like, there was some kind of like they thought piano was for girls or something like that. Taking piano lessons was for girls. I'm like, okay. So the musician I could have been was yanked away from existence because of sexism. Cool.
That's right. You know, I didn't take piano as a kid, but I started playing an instrument in 5th grade. It was the flute. So, and then I got mocked. I was good at the flute, but I got mocked so much that I gave it up after 3 years. You know, like, puberty is a tough time for a boy to be playing an instrument that is perceived as a girl's instrument. And then I switched to the French horn, which is not exactly like the pillar, you know, it's not the trombone on the list of masculine versus feminine instruments, you know, like, nevertheless, I really enjoyed that and played French horn in high school. And because I'd enjoyed that and then looked back with even more fondness on it, we knew that we wanted our kids to do music stuff. So we did like music together, like they're not even lessons, just sort of like music classes with the kids at age 3 and 4. And then as soon as they were willing to take lessons on an instrument, we had them do that. But I think it's just important to start before you're an adult. Like even at 16, like you still have some plasticity in your brain and you're still in a position to learn something. So, I don't know if, like Suzuki violin, kids who learn that at age 8, some of them become prodigies, but mostly like it's just about building a lifelong appreciation for music and how it works and how it can be a source of enjoyment.
Yeah, and on some level, I'm in a certain on a certain level, I'm quote unquote glad that I started as late as I did, because like even now, like I wouldn't say I'm great, but I know because starting out I had no musicality really, so like I've built everything from the ground up, and I've come all this way purely based on will, and so like I am kind of glad that I know I'm doing this because I wanted to, and because sometimes I've interacted with other people who are, or I wouldn't really call them musicians, but like they played instruments, but like music is so ingrained into my being that I don't understand when people play instruments or play music, or they play music and it's not the like number 1 or number 2 thing in their life. And most of the time it is because like they started out early, like their parents put them in music lessons, but they'd never really, it was because their parents wanted to put them in music lessons, not because they exercised a desire for it. And so like it becomes a throwaway thing that they happen to do, and they don't really have an actual appreciation for it.
And I think just speaking as a parent, like there has to be a willingness to, I already mentioned my older son who started off playing violin in 3rd grade and private lessons and all that. And then around 9th grade, he was like, I don't want to play violin anymore. He did piano lessons and voice lessons too. And he's still doing voice lessons. So in other words, like his instrument has changed over the years. And so he really is only focused on singing now. But he understands music, he's sort of self ear trained, and so that early stuff gave him a foundation. But eventually, his motivation had to kick in. What you're talking about, right? Like at a certain point, it can no longer be about the parents. And I think that's probably around age, 10 to 12. If the kid doesn't want to do it, then it's just not going to happen. Right. Once the child has some investment in it, then it could take different forms and really become what it is for you, like a passion, which is great. As again, speaking as a parent or as a teacher, that's all you want to see is for a person to have some passion, but be it music or reading or acoustical engineering. Like you just want to see some sign of real connection to something in the world. So. That's good. That's good that you're there now. Like you said, taking lessons early may or may not have made any difference at all. Right? Maybe you just found it at the right time.
I mean, it always seems like I remember this too late into a conversation, but I even remember a time when I was like 10 and my father offered me to start guitar lessons, but like I didn't understand if I liked music yet. So I said, no, thank you. I'm going to go play video games. And like, there are so many missed opportunities in my life that I found the things I'm into late, or rediscovered them later. And then it makes me think about how much farther along I would be if I had like picked up on it, if I had been aware, if I had the cognizance to realize what was happening, like when I was younger.
Yeah, it's easy to do that. To I don't mean this in a dismissive way, but I always think that about baseball. I was a good baseball player in high school, and really a pretty talented baseball player. But I had a lot of difficulty psychologically with failure, right? In baseball, you fail all the time. So you're going to strike out, you're going to make errors. It's just part of the game. And eventually, those psychological challenges overwhelmed me so much that they impacted my performance, and it also just made it so it wasn't fun. Like I no longer liked playing the game. Now, as an old person, I see, and I coach my son's little league team and stuff. I think, man, why couldn't I have just been the way I am now then? Like, why couldn't I have been like, oh, well, made a mistake, move on, get him next time. Like that attitude would have helped me out, just like it would help anybody out, really. And there is no answer. Like that's just the way it goes. Like you weren't ready to I was not ready to learn that at age 12 or 14. But I know it now, and that's good. Like I could teach other people that. Some people learn lessons early and some people learn them late. And I think we always take for granted the lessons we learn early. Like, well, of course I figured that out, but I didn't figure this thing out. Like I didn't know I'd want to be really good at music. I didn't know I should have taken lessons. Well, but that's how it goes, man. Think of, there were other things that you figured out early that other people were like, man, why couldn't I have figured that out before? And they didn't.
I mean, I guess you could say relatively early, but like I would say, like when we say early, in what increments, by what metric are we saying? Like before 18?
Well, maybe you just mean earlier. Like we always have fantasies. Like if I just would have figured this out earlier, think of all the things that would have been different. And it's true, things would have been different, but they would have been different in all ways, right? Like, like you can't sort of like isolate. That's not the way, that's not the way life works, right? Like you can't isolate this one variable and say, if I could have just flipped this switch, everything would have been different. It's like, because once you flip that switch, other switches get flipped too. And, I don't know. Like, I know this sounds like a middle-aged person talking, right? But like, I'm wary of imagining like that there's some unalloyed good in something happening sooner, or if like that a lesson would have been learned earlier. Maybe it would be just good, but maybe not. So, and
well, I mean,
you can't go back. I mean, again, that sounds simplistic, but it's also one of those things where, like, well, there's just no point wasting or spending time on it because it's all speculation.
Yeah, I don't know. It makes me think about how, like you might, like you passively just said, like I might have figured some things out, but like in reality, I don't think I did, because I think I may have written a personal essay about this that you might have read before, that about my shortcomings in realizing whatever it was I wanted to do with my life. I believe that essay was titled "Misconnections," and
I have read that.
Yeah, and literally everything that I'm interested in doing right at this current moment, there were things that like passed me by when I was younger, and I didn't actually pick up until like basically adulthood. And like I think all that was when I was younger, it was things were superseded by the fact that I had an idea that I was going to be active in like sciences, because that made sense for like a bookish Asian kid. And now it's like I've done a complete 180. I'm more interested. The only thing I'm really interested in are like arts kind of things, and it's not just and it is like all arts, because I just like the realm of arts is just the thing that makes me that's interesting and that makes me happiest, because I realized at some point in my life that I didn't want to be, if I were to ever have a career, a job for anything, I didn't want to be in charge of anything important. I didn't want to do anything that was quote unquote real. Like, I had a passing thought, like, oh, no, maybe be a doctor, right? But then I realized, like, yeah, that's a lot of pressure on someone to like be in charge of people's lives. And so that felt too real, too like I'm in charge of something important. And like the reason I want to be a filmmaker is because I'm pointing cameras at people playing pretend. Nothing, no real part of that is like urgent or like life or death, or is you could consider important.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why that's not important. Why do you think it's not important?
No, but like, do you understand what I mean, right?
I actually don't. I like, and I'm not trying to be obtuse or coy or anything. Like, yeah, what's the nature? Like, what makes something important?
Like say being a doctor, you're helping people, and you're in charge. Like, you could be the thing that decides whether someone lives or dies.
Yeah.
And like, say, in terms of music is just, there's a reason why the term is playing music. It's supposed to be fun. It's just people getting together with instruments and having fun. In terms of filmmaking, it's pointing cameras at people playing pretend. In terms of say, I don't know, like writing, like even though I'm probably not going to be what I want to be in terms of writing, because I feel like I'm terrible at it. It's not quote unquote real. It's not something that's practical for people to consume.
I honestly could not disagree with you more, Benson. And I know I'm an English professor, so I have to disagree with you. But when I think about, now, I've been blessed with good health in my life, so doctors have not really helped me at all. I guess I had a broken nose once, but mostly they just had to stop the bleeding, right? So, and it's true, I could be saved at some future date by a doctor, and I'll be grateful when that time comes. But when I think about the things that have made a difference in my life, like Herman Melville has done more for me than any doctor in terms of helping me navigate the world. And I mean that 100%, 100%. I say, some people are religious. I am not, but I've read Moby Dick, cover to cover many, many times. And that book has taught me more than the Bible. That's for damn sure. And, music, like, how much have I learned from the music I've listened to, both lyrically, but also just sort of navigating emotional difficulty. When I think about films and, like my best friends in college, we would watch the Star Wars trilogy and the Karate Kid over and over and laugh about it. And, like, these are not great movies, or their greatness is kind of contextual, but I feel like all of those things, right? The music and the films and the, if we can call the Karate Kid a film, and books are opportunities for communities to form, for connections between people. And also, like, so much of it has just been a source of real wisdom that I use every day. So I'm totally not exaggerating when I say, like, I really don't know what you mean about importance. Like, to me, that stuff feels enormously important, because it is about it's about bringing people together and helping them navigate life, which is a shit show, as we've seen in 2020, right? Like,
Yeah.
so any tools that we can have to help us get through life are important. And remember, too, like a doctor, like if you imagine life in binary terms, like you're alive, you're dead. Yes, I can understand how a doctor is viewed really importantly, but again, this year should have taught us that that's not how life works. Like, there's being alive and then there's living. And I think the things that you're talking about are absolutely fundamental to living in its fullest sense, right? Like, when I read a book, when I watch a film, like, I think about myself as a human being and what I'm doing here, and what it means to be alive. What are my responsibilities to others? What are my responsibilities to my family, to my friends? And those things get refined. And doctors, God bless them, a cardiologist isn't about that. A cardiologist is going to help me with my arrhythmia, and that's important too, right? But that's not, and I actually don't have an arrhythmia, but but it's not the only thing, So I really mean that. Like, if you think that what you're doing isn't important, I think maybe you just need to rethink the nature of importance.
So I'm glad we're on this now, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately, about how, like, my not wanting to, quote unquote, do anything that's important or be in charge of anything that's real. It might be rooted in, I'm not sure how else to put this, but like me not wanting to, say, help people. If you know what I mean.
Is it not wanting to help people or not feeling like you have to help people?
Oh no, like I think about like my ambitions and endeavors, and then think about other people like who like they want to be doctors and nurses, or do social work, or join the Peace Corps, or do other stuff like that. That's like they're actively trying to help people, but all I want to do is like arts because that's fun, and I only ever want to have fun. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to have fun, and I would say that in a lot of cases, and this is just my experience, but people who are doing maybe not medicine, but maybe are doing things so that they can make a salary, and wanting to make a larger salary is oftentimes tied to a desire to have fun, right? Like to be able to afford vacations or houses or cars or things that certain people find enjoyment in. So I would only say that I think from my view, I think your thinking is a little binaristic. Like, having fun takes a lot of different forms for a lot of different folks. And so, those other people are also committed to having fun, but maybe in different venues or through different experiences.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's like I'm also sort of a misanthrope. I have sort of a cynical view of humanity, and in my, at least in my experience, or like my frame of reference in terms of, say, helping people. I'm not a doctor or a social worker, but like helping people in my bubble of the world is basically working in like customer service in like a restaurant or retail. And in those worlds, helping people is giving them what they want, as if they whine long and hard enough. And like, I don't like that idea of helping people.
Well, maybe it's not really helping people. I mean, right? Like the people you're helping there really aren't the customers. The people you're helping are your employers, who are, paying you to put up with stuff that they don't want to put up with.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I think for sure, whatever you have parents, you have now grown up in the world, and I'm sure you can look back and understand that there are times when what was ultimately helpful was not pleasing in the short term. And a lot of school is organized around that, right? That some amount of challenge and difficulty is really necessary for someone to get what he or she needs from school, right? Like you got to suffer a little bit, not like for suffering's sake, but man, writing that paper is the thing that crystallizes your knowledge. Like that's how you force yourself to know the things you need to know, even though in a moment, the most helpful thing I could do as a teacher might be to say, you know what, don't worry about that paper. You're all set. But if I did that for everybody, nobody would learn anything. Right? So I just think some of the terms, right, like important or helpful, I have different understandings of those words. That's all, right? Like at this stage, I have different understandings of those words.
Yeah, I suppose, but it's still like I feel like a walking contradiction because, like I say, I'm a misanthrope, and there have been other episodes of the podcast where I talk about how I don't like people or talking to them, but then I'm also doing a podcast where I talk to people. So because I don't know, I like to make the distinction that I don't like people, but I can maybe be comfortable with person, which is why like the format for the podcast does tend to be like a one-on-one conversation with someone else.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of people either, but I do like certain people, right? And I think that's what you're talking about. And I would like, I guess maybe what I'm trying to get at is I don't know if it's so much of a contradiction, Benson. Like it's easy to dislike something in the aggregate and then still appreciate something in its sort of in its finitude. Like, you know, one by one, you can find other human beings really exciting and interesting and still feel like human beings in general have made kind of a mess of things.
As we can see, because of 2020.
Because of 2020, yeah. It's not only humans, right? I guess there are other, there may be other culprits, but humans are, we're the primary problem. That's where the arts come from, though. Like, so I guess it's none of this is really a surprise. Like, my buddy Herman Melville was definitely misanthropic, and obviously not my personal friend, but Mark Twain was misanthropic, and so are lots of people who have made beautiful things, right? Because they maybe see flaws and then imagine solutions or imagine possibilities that other people don't. If you look at the world and think everything is great, then I don't know, where's the impetus to create anything more than a Thomas Kincaid painting? Apologize to all the Thomas Kincaid fans, but I'm sorry, like it's not good.
Oh no, it's weird to think that I'm just sort of toiling away in my room trying to make stuff because I want to have a career where it's not dependent on helping people or being in charge of something that people can like complain about or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, keep doing that, right? Like, that's how you get to a place where you can have that, freedom. I feel like a lot of our endeavors are sort of strivings toward a situation that we would really crave, and the part of the challenge is that you're often not in that situation as you're striving. Right, that is the impetus for the striving to begin. So, and to continue, and ultimately, that's really valuable. As someone who's kind of in obviously a very different stage of life from you, it is a fear of mine that one could get stuck, right, and not have that sort of impetus anymore, not want anything further professionally or personally than what you have right now, and that to me sounds really frightening. But that feels much closer than what you're dealing with, because I get paid a fair amount of money now, and like I have a good, I have my own house and all these things, and so I see the allure of your position, perhaps, because it contains possibility and because it contains motivation, and those things aren't to be taken for granted. You should enjoy those things while you got them.
Sorry, Dr. Sinche, my internet dropped out.
Okay. I was like, was that me?
No, actually, it dropped out once other time in the middle of this, but I think it was quick enough that you didn't notice. And but so you were saying
I don't remember. I don't exactly remember, but I do think, like, you know, that there is joy. There is joy in like striving and trying to sort of you're aiming for a goal, but it's a goal that one might not ever reach, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Like there's such pleasure in the striving and in attaining whatever it is you attain along the way.
Yeah.
And there will be attainments along the way. So, you know, next year you'll be a graduate, and you'll be.
Well, next year I'll be nearly a graduate.
I meant like next.
A year from now?
Next, yeah.
Or yeah, okay.
But you know, maybe look. My first job, I wanted to teach school. I didn't get a job teaching school. Then I was teaching school, and then that started me going in a new direction. So you know, you might end up teaching school. I know that's your current track, and that will lead you to your next thing. Like whatever you do first will lead you to your next thing, and it's impossible to not sound like an old person once you become an old person. You know, like I realize that I'm talking like someone my age, but I am my age, right? And so you can look back and say, well, you know, whatever it was that occurred, or you know, whatever sort of steps I took, you know, those steps were instrumental in leading me along the way. And that doesn't mean you're going to end up where I am, but because you're going to have different goals and ideas in mind. But I feel very sanguine about someone who's thoughtful about the world and intelligent, going out into it and finding something useful to do. And by useful, I mean not to me, but to you. So, but I don't know. I mean, it's just, you can't go backwards. Like I can't go back to a place where I didn't have faith those things would work out. But I understand why it would be harder to have faith now, because the world is worse than when I came out of college. There's no doubt about it. I think that is objectively true.
Yeah, it seems like it's tradition for podcasts featuring you as a guest to end up having me think too much about my life and what to do with it.
I don't know if two things makes a tradition, but yes, I remember this is where we ended up last time as well. Well, you know, Benson, you could cut this out so that maybe you could find a way to end on an upswing.
What I'm trying to say is, Dr. Sinche, I don't want to grow up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a choice. That's between you and your parents.
I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything real or important because I don't want to grow up.
Well, you just have to. Growing up, really, I think what you mean by growing up is just getting paid enough to pay your own bills.
Sure. I guess that's what that means.
Right? I mean, like what else? What other measures of growing up would there be?
Having a career.
Okay. Right. Well, I mean,
I'm not even sure if I want a career.
Well, one does not have to have a career.
So,
I mean, you know, like when you think about that, is not on the hierarchy of needs. You know, like
yeah.
You just need to eat. You need food and shelter.
Yeah.
And you know, to the extent you can get those provided for you.
Or according to Thoreau, it's food, shelter, fuel, and what's the fourth thing?
Clothing.
Clothing.
Yeah. And by the way, bringing up Thoreau is important in this context because Henry David Thoreau is a man who never had a career. He taught school a little bit. He did this, that, and the other. The man never had a career, and he also never did anything that anybody thought was important, except wrote one of the great books of the 19th century that people still turn to for wisdom. And when he died, Emerson said of him that all he ever really accomplished was to be the leader of a huckleberry gathering party. So there's a model for someone who did nothing important, never had a career, and followed his own whims and managed to do pretty well at it.
But like the reverence and like success came posthumously.
Yes. Well, you just said you didn't want to do anything important. I mean, you can't have it both ways. You can't not want to do anything important and then want people to think that it was important after all.
I don't know. I guess that's the dichotomy that, or the I don't want to do anything quote unquote important, but at the same time I want to be recognized for the things I create. That's the contradiction.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a contradiction, right? But you want to do things that you find enjoyable, but you want other people to find them meaningful. And right, like you want other people to find them important, even though that wasn't why you did it. That's how other people respond to it.
Yeah.
That might be possible. Right?
We'd have to wait until after I'm dead to see if people recognize it as such, I suppose.
I strongly suspect that Thoreau knew he wrote a really good book. And I tend to think that would be more than enough. I do. Right? Because what are the markers of importance that you want to receive? Is it money? Is it fame? Is it acclaim? Is it a platform? Yeah, actually think about that. Like, if other people think you're important, what about that do you want?
I don't even know. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think those are important questions to think about. I can tell you personally that the only thing I want is for me to actually believe that it was worthwhile, whatever it is I create. I mean that, I've got all the money I need. I don't want cars. I don't want to be famous. I don't give a crap about any of that stuff. I want to have produced something that I actually think is good. That would be to me the only meaningful measure, because I've had this experience, right? Like when I was in graduate school, I thought, well, if I could just publish an essay in a journal, that would be meaningful. Like then I would feel good about myself because other people would have judged my work to be here. Then I did that, and then I was like, well, that was easy, right? Like it actually doesn't mean anything because I did it. Like if it were hard, I wouldn't be able to do it, but I did, so it's easy, right? And then the goal was, well, I want to get tenure, I want to get promotion, I want to do this, so all these professional markers, and then once you hit them and you find like, well, that wasn't that hard, you just start to realize that there is no amount of external validation that will ever make you feel good about whatever it is you've done. None. No grade, no reward, no award, none of it. It's just it really just has to be you. And so I think that's where Thoreau got. And
yeah, I think it sounds corny and cliche, but it's about the work.
That's why people say it. Sometimes those cliches are true. But you can only I think that it's easier to say when you get older and you have had some success, as I've had in like a very small way, to realize that even that success is it's not meaningful in terms of fulfillment.
Yeah.
That's not to say that one cannot be fulfilled by doing this work, by working in the arts, by publishing, by creating films, by making music. It's only to say that fulfillment is not sort of aligned with public reception of whatever it is you've done.
Well, guys, I learned something today.
Well, that's my opinion. Other people might feel differently.
I might have. I'll have to listen back to see if I did learn anything.
There you go.
But I think we've gone on for a while, and
yeah, you're gonna have to cut some dispense. And there were some low points. You can get rid of those.
But I guess just a couple more things I want to talk to you about are something I think I actually did plan to at least ask you about this, but then forgot about it. Was since the last time you were on, your title has changed from associate professor to professor.
That's true.
How does it feel?
Don't care. I'll tell you exactly why I wanted my title to change. Was because you get a pay raise.
All right.
And so I think no differently about myself than I did last December. I was associate professor. January I was professor. Whoop-de-doo. But my salary went up. And I've got a son who's going to college, and I've got a mortgage. So in that respect, it is important. But apropos of our previous discussion, it is important to me in no other respect.
Okay. And how does it feel to be a returning guest?
Great. I knew how this was go. I felt safe in your capable hands, and I think that I just find this format. I listen to podcasts all the time. I find the format really interesting. Just in like any conversation, right? Like it ebbs and flows, and it touches on different things, and it's really remarkable how it happens time and time again in different ways with each new person. I'm sure you feel that as a podcaster, right? Like every conversation is different, and yet it just sort of it is a thing unto itself. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, the reason I like to have people on multiple times is because no two conversations between any two people, even the same two people, is ever the same.
Right.
And also, if I only ever had anyone on once, the show would be dead in like a year. And Wobita was
meet
dead.
More people.
For a while, it was dead, but now, hey guys, we're trucking, releasing episodes bi-weekly. But I'd like to thank you, Dr. Sinche, for talking to me.
My pleasure, Benson. Thanks for having me on. At least one more time before you graduate, I hope.
Yeah, sure. The original plan before the pandemic hit was just to have all my professors on every semester to like chat, check in, make jokes about whatever. And of course, the pandemic made that not possible. But because I like chatting with you guys, and it's it's cool to talk to people and sometimes joke around with them for the sake of content and entertainment. But it's I hope to do this. I hope to talk to you again, perhaps multiple times more. Up until we forget who each other are, because we would have been so far removed for so many years that we at some point just look and find this thing called a podcast that Benson once did. And then think, oh yeah, I remember that guy. Yeah. We had some talks.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Benson. I always enjoy talking with you, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And I guess I'll see you one more time for that before the semester ends. But yeah,
I will not be on my couch, but you will be in the same place. So I look forward to seeing you then.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care.